Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Connecting Dots podcast. Mohsin Khan has joined us all the way from the UK today, and he has a decade long career in computing under his belt. So, with that, let's get started. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, Osama, for inviting me over. Really glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And we'll get started, first of all, by asking you about your decade long career in computing. How has the journey been for you so far?
Yeah, my journey actually started like any typical Pakistani software engineer. After my bachelor's, I joined an organization called the Resource Group. Now it's been
Mm-hmm.
renamed to Affinity,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then moved on to NetSol. So my core technology stack was .NET. I started as a .NET software developer, Microsoft Stack, SQL, C Sharp, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I realized I was probably lacking a bit in terms of programming, architecting, or designing, or like the whole software development life cycle. So I decided to pursue a master's degree, and I went to LUMS for that. Um, and during that, I focused a lot on hands-on development itself, like programming,
Mm-hmm.
designing systems as well. After that, I rejoined NetSol. I was one of the first members to join their R&D team, which
Nice.
was focused mainly on improving their existing systems. And Netzel, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, was one of the top companies in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Um, After that, I got the opportunity to move to the UK. So I joined Accenture in the UK and I started as an associate. I focused on the software development and delivery side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more focused on technology consulting along with software development. And it allowed me to go through the whole software development lifecycle, customer facing skills, soft skills as well. So it allowed me an opportunity to develop those. And after almost 6 years at Accenture,
Mm-hmm.
then I got the opportunity to join AWS. I'm working as a solutions architect here now.
Excellent, excellent. So now that we're talking about, in specific, about your role of solutions architect, so what is that about? What does the role entail?
Right. So it's a pretty unique role. Um, I'll tell you that when I was like doing my master's, I had never heard of a solutions architect. So all the sort of roles we heard about were software engineering manager, right? So I never heard of solutions architect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a unique role in at Amazon itself because it kind of lies between the business and the technology side of things. So we act
Yeah.
as a conduit between the business, the customer, and the technology aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
solving business problems using technology and helping customers on their cloud journeys from migration to modernization and innovating using the cutting edge cloud technologies. We act as like trusted advisors as well and
Mm-hmm.
customer advocates. So we are sort of an interface for customers to the
Mm-hmm.
internal service teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting role because for this, you need to have um, business acumen, but
Mm-hmm.
also a breadth and depth of or awareness of technology as well. A lot
Right.
of solutions architects come from backgrounds with software engineering, which is typical, and system operations as well, system
Mm-hmm.
administration. But there are also which have um, diverse backgrounds, such as economics. I've even heard of people coming from a background of music and geology as well. So it's a pretty
Yeah.
diverse bunch, and it's a very exciting role
Yeah.
and high performing role as well.
Right. So I'll build upon it a little further. Do you need to have a
Mhm.
programming background in specific to be successful in this role, or no?
Not necessarily. I think that is one of the myths about this role that you need to be an expert in programming, right? Uh,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Programming experience definitely helps. I think it's a bonus, the more
Mm-hmm.
experience you have, but it's not a must that you need to have that. So you have people
Right.
coming in from technology and then moving towards architecting or solutions
Yeah.
architect. And you've got on the other side of the spectrum, you've got people from the business side who learn
Mm-hmm.
technology and then become solutions architect. So you don't necessarily need to have
Right.
or be an expert.
So, Mohsen, I've noticed that you've actually completed a lot of different specialty tracks as far as the certifications are concerned. So, what's the value proposition for you, and how did you plan for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been asked this question a lot of times. The value proposition, I'll get to that, but it's an interesting story to actually get started on a certification journey
Mm-hmm.
at all. It's quite demanding, requires lots of dedication and hard work, lots of studying. But for me, it started as just a one-off. So I wanted to get maybe just one certification. I was working on a client project where it was just migrating workloads to AWS.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, as I'm going through the learning journey, why not just validate those skills?
Yeah.
Um, and at Accenture, there's a lot of focus on learning, and because we do consulting for a number of clients, so it's important to
Mm-hmm.
upskill as well from a career development standpoint as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that was just one off that I started with one certification, but then it sort of developed into a passion that as I started learning for one
Yeah.
certification, I realized there's still some gaps and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
understand things fully.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I went for the next one and then the next one and next one. And so over time, it developed
Yeah.
into a passion for learning AWS as a whole.
Right.
But I want to add one more thing
Yeah.
here that
Mm-hmm.
certifications are just like step zero on your path. Um,
Yeah.
they're not equivalent for hands-on or practical experience. So
Mm-hmm.
you get certified, and then you should focus on practical hands-on experience
Mm-hmm.
in developing that. And as we
Mm-hmm.
say at Amazon, there is no compression algorithm for experience. But what I
Correct.
want to add to that is that there is a compression
Yeah.
algorithm for learning. At least that's
Yeah.
something you can control. You can focus on
Mm-hmm.
learning. Experience is going to come with time.
So, Mohsen, there is one more thing I would like to ask you, or I would rather want to get your feedback on that. And this comes from my experience that I've talked to different senior people in my organization as well. And the thing is, there are a lot of people who advocate getting actual hands on experience on a project, whereas there are other people who say that maybe going through a structured route of certification may help you prepare better for the project that you might be working on or you might be aiming for. So where do you draw that fine line? What's your take on that in general?
Sure. And I think um, there are a lot of people on both sides of the spectrum, pro certification versus pro experience. I kind of tend to
Mm-hmm.
be in the middle somewhere. And I'll tell you my
Yeah.
own experience. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
going through my learning journey, or before starting that, I was working across different projects, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily becoming a master in any particular area. I was like a
Yeah.
jack of all trades. So you work across
Uh-huh.
one project, you develop some
Yeah.
skills, you work in another project, you develop some skills, but not in a structured way.
Mm-hmm.
What certifications did for me and why I find them valuable is you go through a
Mm-hmm.
structured learning versus in
Mm-hmm.
bits and pieces. So you're
Right.
developing a strong foundation there, right? And in the longer term,
Okay.
it serves
Yeah.
you, even if you don't become an expert overnight, you know
Mm-hmm.
where to find the knowledge, right? And you know where to go and learn, right? Versus obviously experience is going to come with time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other side is if you look at the data and the research that's been done around certifications, it's
Mm-hmm.
proven that from AWS standpoint, about 91% people, I mean, 91% of respondents for research survey said that they were more productive after getting certified. So it also improves
Uh-huh.
your productivity, right?
Right.
And that's where, and not just your skills and productivity, but also your profile as well, which is an added bonus, I
Yeah.
would say. But again, there is
Right.
no compression algorithm for experience. You should focus on
Yeah.
certifications as well as experience.
Perfect, perfect. Well, taking this conversation a little further, although you did hint
Mhm.
about it before as well, but how did you develop an interest in being a solutions architect?
Right, that's an interesting question. So, when I was working on one of my projects for migrating
Mm-hmm.
workloads to AWS, we had um, that particular customer or client was had interaction with solutions architect at AWS, and I got an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to visit the Amazon office once, and I
Mm-hmm.
was quite inspired and impressed by the way they were operating, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I sort of thought that maybe one day I'll probably try and see if I can maybe become part of Amazon. But
Mm-hmm.
that moment sort of inspired me to have a look at that and explore this role a bit further. But
Mm-hmm.
eventually, I would say the role probably chose me versus me choosing it, because with that
Uh-huh.
learning journey to
Yeah.
AWS, as I was progressing through that learning journey, it
Mm-hmm.
developed that mindset of moving from a pure software engineer or developer towards a consultant and then towards an architect that considers things from a broader perspective,
Mm-hmm.
looks at the bigger picture, at architecting or designing a system versus just
Mm-hmm.
a narrow tunnel where you're focusing on just writing your code and deploying it and operating it.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
I would say
Mm-hmm.
probably the role chose me
Uh-huh.
versus me going for it.
So after starting in this role, how does the work-life balance look like for you?
Right. Work-life balance, yeah, it is really good. There
Yeah.
is a lot of flexibility in terms of how we operate. I mean, everyone that's hired, they definitely demonstrate some. They're leaders and they're owners, and
Hmm.
they're able to deliver results. You must have heard about the
Hmm.
leadership principles.
Yes.
So it's completely flexible for us how we operate, how we get the work done, and
Hmm.
so we can schedule our we can we can take control of our schedule basically. The
Hmm.
thing is, there's always so much stuff going on, and I wish we had more hours in the day to take part in everything. But obviously, we've only
Exactly.
got 24, so we can't take
Yeah.
part in everything. So there's always a lot of things going
Yeah.
on. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of flexibility in work-life balance.
In few sentences, if we have to comprehensively put it together, what would you comment on being successful in this role? Like, what kind of competency do you think is needed?
Sure. And this is my personal view. I've been at AWS over about almost 1.5 years. And the
Mm-hmm.
way I define it is that you need to have about five different competencies. And
Mm-hmm.
I break them down into being a builder. You need to
Mm-hmm.
be good at problem solving and analytical skills, analyzing a
Mm-hmm.
problem, building stuff. And that
Mm-hmm.
also includes like programming or developing solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then you also got to be a good organizer. You
Mm-hmm.
should be able to coordinate, uh, get people together to maybe focus on a program, develop a
Mm-hmm.
solution. You need to be a speaker, and definitely a
Mm-hmm.
good listener because we
Yeah.
work with it's a customer facing roles, and we
Mm-hmm.
also focus a lot on thought leadership like
Right.
webinars, user group events, speaking at reInvent, speaking at
Mm-hmm.
other events, industry events. So that
Mm-hmm.
is one aspect of it. Then
Mm-hmm.
definitely a leader, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that you should be like managing you're managing people. Could be a leader
Yeah.
even being an individual contributor, be able to own stuff and deliver results. Um,
Right.
and finally, I would say you need to be good at. I think it's we've got builder, we've got speaker, we've got
Mm-hmm.
listener as well, we've got organizer and leader. I think those are the five main stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Gotcha. Perfect. So do you have any cool traditions at work?
cool traditions. I think there are a lot. Um, a couple of a couple of items that I would describe would be people. Some people love stickers at AWS, so
Mm-hmm.
you've got laptops filled with different sort of stickers. I've
Yeah.
got mine as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then we also have like Fridays are for learning purposes, and we have lunch and
Mm-hmm.
learn sessions um, across technology and business skills as well. That we like to like share our experiences, share what we've been doing with customers.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also have like every once a year we do go have team offsites, like a whole week or so. So last time my team we went to Scotland. We enjoyed a lot there
Ah,
in the Highlands, and
nice.
it was just
Yeah.
a mix of learning
Uh-huh.
as well as team
Yeah.
building activities. It's pretty fun. So this year,
Right.
don't know, maybe we'll go somewhere nice.
So switching gears a little bit and talking about your education or educational background. So
Hmm.
how was that journey for you, and how did it shape you into the person you are today?
Hmm. Right. I'd always been interested in computers. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I think probably my interest started with playing games, and then we go
Mm-hmm.
into how those are developed, and that's when
Mm-hmm.
I pursued a computer science bachelor's. Um, so my bachelor's prepared me to an extent, but when I joined industry, I realized there's a lot of gap in terms of what I've been taught versus
Yeah.
what actually happens in the industry.
Oh,
And
for
that's
sure.
where I
Yeah.
then again went for a master's to sort of
Mm-hmm.
fill those gaps to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to focus more on hands-on projects
Mm-hmm.
versus courses that were probably
Mm-hmm.
focused more on theory, because at the end I wanted to go towards industry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where my master's equipped me
Mm-hmm.
with or improved my
Mm-hmm.
skills, helped me to improve those technical skills. Uh, and again, uh, I think a lot of people, a lot of students, they actually go through education, but at the end, they're not quite sure what they want to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And that's where you need some proper mentoring, proper guidance in choosing those right courses um,
Yeah.
to help you prepare. If you want to like pursue academia, you should pursue different courses versus if you want to go towards industry.
Hmm.
Um, and that I think that gap has been filled to an extent. There are degrees being taught around cloud computing now. Um,
Yeah.
Going back around like a decade when I was doing my studies, I think there weren't a lot of opportunities, but now there are. But still, that gap remains to an extent that the
Right.
degrees are not
Yeah.
necessarily preparing you with those hardcore technical skills that you need to be successful in roles like a solutions architect, for instance.
Right. So now that we've discovered that there's a gaping hole in there, what do you think
Hmm.
should be an optimal solution to that? Like, how can academia better align themselves to meet the demands of the industry?
Right. Um, I think they need to bring in experts from industry when they are um, coming up with uh, the whole courses. And I think that is happening to an extent, though not everywhere, of course.
Hmm.
Um, and students need to take a proactive approach as well. They need to get some mentoring, whether that's in their family or in a network or from someone to
Yeah.
understand what they're actually going for. Um, like um, for if you're going for cloud computing, I would recommend going for doing as much hands-on stuff as possible, gaining as much hands-on experience. Now, I would give you an example of my
Hmm.
project when I was doing my master's and we were doing machine learning. We had no idea
Hmm.
about how to use cloud to solve a challenge or solve a problem. But
Yeah.
today, it's very easy, very cheap, very simple for anyone to spin up or do any sort of machine learning in AWS. Um, and it's
Yeah.
the pace at which we innovate and release services, it's just amazing. Um,
Yeah.
a few years back, as a student, I couldn't even imagine like deploying a model somewhere, but now
Yeah.
um, anyone can do that.
So other than that, since you're pretty technical and you've developed a a business understanding of things as well. So in your opinion, do
Mhm.
you really think that you would ever go for a PhD later on in your life, or maybe let's say an MBA?
Um, Probably MBA. I wouldn't consider PhD because I think I want to grow in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
MBA, yes, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to like pursue further or develop soft skills and business acumen further, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think PhD is something that I want to pursue. But taking a
Mm-hmm.
bigger picture look, if anyone wants to like probably go for there are applied
Mm-hmm.
scientist roles as well, like at Amazon, which have
Yeah.
those PhDs, and I believe Google and Facebook and Meta and
Yeah.
everything. Uh,
Yeah.
that's a sort of requirement for that. There are even PhDs who there are solutions architects who've got PhDs in their areas. And um, one thing
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to actually mention, we've got specialists as well. So I'm a generally solutions architect, whereas there
Mm-hmm.
are specialists as well in their areas who are domain experts, like
Right.
specialists
Yeah.
in analytics or machine learning or
Yeah.
compute, storage, etc.
Yeah.
Um, and
So
there's
I
a
guess
career path
those kind
towards
of
that
people
as well.
might be I guess the key decision makers at some points in making the product. I guess that maybe we should use this solution, maybe that, something like that to actually optimize their product.
Mhm. So
I
from
guess,
from
yeah.
product development, that's completely separate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's several service or product teams
Mm-hmm.
who are separate from solutions architect. What we as solutions architect do is we take customer feedbacks and we provide those to those service teams, which can influence their roadmap on what
Mm-hmm.
sort of features they want to add to the product. Um,
Mm-hmm.
90% of what that's been built at AWS is based on customer feedback. So
Yeah.
customer feedback is very important on and has an impact on the roadmap that we have. So for features and services.
So Mohsin Khan, not just as a solutions architect, but as a human being, as a person, what are the core values that you live by in your life?
Hmm. I think both in your personal as well as professional life, it's very important to be authentic, um, especially in a sort of role where where you need to interact a lot. It's very important to be your authentic self um,
Mm-hmm.
and bring in your diverse opinions. That's how you develop high performing teams as well. Um, On the other side, you need integrity is very important as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the other aspect that I'm really passionate about and want to champion is like paying it forward. If someone helps you, if you help someone without an expectation for something in return, I believe that's going to come around sooner or later at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think helping others, guiding others, if you've gone through the tough journey yourself, it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
a responsibility on you to pay it
Mm-hmm.
forwards. And I live by those principles as well um, in my professional life.
Excellent, excellent. What does success look like to you?
Right, success. I think it's quite subjective, but for me, I would take a sort of a philosophical approach here. I think
Mm-hmm.
success to me means that when you get up in the morning, you have that same passion for building something for your job or for where you are in life, and you're content with that. I think that is success rather than losing that passion. And if you're not
Mm-hmm.
passionate about something, then that means something needs to change. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, gotcha. So, what's your take on mentorship, and what kind of mentors have been there for you in your professional growth?
Mhm. Um, for the early part of my career, about
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 years, I think I had no mentor actually. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
go through or struggle a lot to figure out what I'm passionate about
Mm-hmm.
and figure out where I want to pursue or take my career. So,
Mm-hmm.
like as I previously mentioned, I was kind of a jack of all trades, figuring things out myself, making mistakes, and then
Yeah.
learning from them. But I'm really passionate about mentoring and guiding. So if anyone comes to me, I'm more than happy to share my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts or provide them guidance. A lot of people ask me for certification guidance, and I help them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who approaches me, I definitely help them. Um, I think
Mm-hmm.
mentorship is something that needs to be developed. And as I said, it's important for anyone who's gone through some tough experiences to get to a certain stage. You should pay it forward as much as possible.
Right. Right.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
always seeking out opportunities where I can mentor or guide uh, enthusiasts in cloud
Yeah.
or anyone who's starting their journey.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, I think it's cool that it's kind of like the student-teacher relationship where you genuinely want to find that person doing maybe better than you, and it's not really limited to just their growth. And you're like, I sincerely wish and will try to help them so that they can grow as much as they can in life. And I think that is a very profound feeling that maybe our teachers used to say that and we couldn't understand, and now we genuinely understand what that means. It's pretty inspiring. So,
Yeah,
other than that, Mohsin, what are the things that excite you in life in general?
right. Other than that, I'm really excited about traveling. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's quite cliche, but I enjoy traveling a lot. I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
Lots of things on the bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
I like tackling or solving challenges where people have given up, where
Yeah.
people say it can't be done. That sort of excites me to like, let's try a different approach.
Yeah.
Let's persist with something. I think that's something
Yeah.
I'm excited about. Um,
Yeah.
apart from that, yeah, a bit of photography every now and then. I'm not a pro F by any means, but I try to do every now and then.
No,
Um,
that's
yeah,
pretty cool. So, how much of Europe have you discovered already?
not a lot. So I've been to Germany, of course, England.
Uh-huh.
May get
Yeah.
opportunity to visit Italy sometime.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, a
Did
lot of
you
things on the
did
list.
you drive on Autobahn?
No, 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 not yet, not yet.
That's
But I've been
legit
through there.
adrenaline
I've been
rush.
through the. I've been on their trains, and I love those
Yeah.
double-decker trains, by the way.
Nice, nice, pretty cool. In your opinion, what kind of challenges in the world can cloud computing solve other than the ones that they have already tackled?
Well, there's no limitations in terms of what sort of problems it can solve. Uh, Currently, you see there's a lot of focus on sustainability
Mm-hmm.
and how cloud computing is helping there. Personally, I think there's still a lot that can be done around education, especially in underdeveloped countries, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where cloud computing can help. provide access to education,
Yeah.
um, or cheap access to students in those developing countries. But
Right.
virtually there is no problem that virtually can't be solved. And over the next few years or so,
Mm-hmm.
cloud is going to be a normal thing. There are still a
Mm-hmm.
lot of enterprises um, that are on their journey to cloud or haven't even started
Yeah.
yet. So over the
Mm-hmm.
next few years, cloud is going to be I would say, the new
Yeah.
normal.
Right. Excellent. Honestly, Mohsin, I had a great time talking to you. And I'll close off by my last question. Again, considering or looking back at your professional journey and growth, what do you think
Hmm.
you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
Hmm. I would say probably two things. One is to not be afraid of failure and trying out different things. Uh, Focus on experimenting. Don't be afraid of failure. And if you fail fast, get back up again and try something else. The next thing
Mm-hmm.
I would say is um, rather than in reinventing the wheel or going through those same problems that someone else has already gone through, develop your network. Learn from
Mm-hmm.
people who have already gone through similar experiences, um, and get the right guidance at the right time. Rather than,
Yeah.
because that's something that's going to help you figure out your own passion if you have not already done that, and what direction you want to take. A lot of us are driven just by inertia versus figuring out a passion ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our first job dictates a lot in which direction we want to go towards. So that's something I would say to my younger self, that network a lot, learn from people,
Mm-hmm.
experiment, figure out your passion as soon as possible.
Awesome. That's definitely a very cool piece of advice. Well, with that, I'd like to close off our conversation, Mohsin. I had a great time talking to you today, and I definitely hope that our audience will find this content very educational and very inspiring as well. If you like the content, feel free to share it with your friends and family, and do support me by buying me a coffee. I'll provide the link in the description. This podcast is definitely going to be hosted on all major platforms. And until the next episode, take care.